So what we're going to look at in this video is what happens if a government changes its fiscal policy from one of direct taxes to indirect taxes. If we shift from an economy which uses direct taxes to raise revenue for government to one which uses indirect taxes. So indirect taxes are referring to VAT, excise duties, such as specific expenditure taxes, and of course direct tax is referring to capital gains tax, corporation tax and income tax. And this has happened in many countries as a result of a so-called supply-side revolution, where we've, in the 80s for example, before Mrs Thatcher in the UK, our top rate of income tax on earned income was 83%. On unearned income, it was 98%, unbelievably. And this was reduced by 1988 to a top income tax rate of 40%, which has more or less remained the case since. However, VAT rates in the late 70s were 8% in the UK and are now 20% at the time of speaking. So there's been a significant shift there, and similarly excise duties increased, particularly on smoking, and capital gains tax and corporation tax has been reduced. By 2020 the government in the UK would like to get corporation tax down to 18%. So what are the effects of this change on the economy as we go from direct taxes to a greater emphasis on indirect taxes? Well, first of all, let's look at real output. It's likely that real output, according to supply-side economists, would tend to increase because if firms are paying less corporation tax, there'll be an increase in investment. More investment means more research and development, more innovation, new products, business expansion. So that's going to increase the real output of the economy because it's a supply-side policy. Lower capital gains tax and lower corporation tax will mean that businesses expand and businesses have lower costs. And therefore there's going to be an increase in output. It's likely there'll be an increase in employment. If we reduce income tax, then there'll be a greater incentive to work, to look at it simply, and also we might improve the benefit replacements ratio, so it will encourage people unemployed to take work because work pays, and therefore it reduces the unemployment trap. Another way of doing this is to increase the tax allowance that people on very low incomes receive, and therefore that encourages people to accept jobs. So it's likely employment will increase. Also, people who are richer can increase the number of hours that they work. Okay. Now let's look at what might happen to the trade balance. And what may happen is if there's more investment and product costs are falling, then it's likely that there'll be a greater number of exports. Okay? So it could improve the balance of trade. Of course, it depends what other countries do to corporation tax and capital gains tax, as well as income tax. So exports will become more price competitive, and possibly with more investment, more non-price competitive too. And so it could improve the balance of trade. Foreign direct investment is likely to flow to a country that has relatively lower capital gains tax, corporation tax, and also in terms of employment, there'll be a reverse brain drain effect. People will move to countries with a lower income tax rate. Perhaps that's why people have moved to London from France in response to President Hollande's 75% tax rate, whereas the top tax rate in the UK is currently 45%. So there'll be a flow, an increase in employment, but the key thing is there could be inward investment. And there are other reasons for inward investment, of course. So that investment will become more profitable. There'll be yet more investment and more growth in an economy such as the UK. So you tend to find internationally there's sometimes something of a race to the bottom. Ireland currently has a 10% corporation tax rate, for example. There's a race to the bottom on these taxes for that reason. If we come to income distribution, therein lies the problem, because these taxes here are progressive taxes. As your income grows up, or your profits go up, you often pay a higher proportion of tax. These taxes here are regressive. They hit the poor hardest as a percentage of their income. So if we switch our tax base from these income taxes, corporation tax plus tax on profit, which is type of income, to indirect taxes, then it's likely that that will affect the income distribution in an adverse way. It'll increase inequality, and that's one significant factor as to why the UK's inequality has increased from the late 70s into the 2000s. And then we've got the price level. What will happen there? And a key point here is that if business costs are falling, then it's likely that prices, inflation, will be held down. However, if you increase VAT, it does increase the price level. And there's a danger that workers might respond by pushing up their wages in response, and that might lead to a second round effect. So in the short run, it's likely that the price level will rise as a result of an increase in VAT or excise duties. However, in the long run, once that's come out of the inflation figures after 1 year, then these lower taxes might encourage more competition, more innovation, and therefore lead to less inflation as a supply-side reform of the economy. Thank you very much.